Hello, everyone. This video is a follow-up to my previous two videos about a particularly transphobic article published by News on the 26th of October. If you haven't seen those, I'd encourage you to go and watch them first. But before you go, in the second video, you'll see me say that the deadline to submit complaints about the article is about to pass, which it now has. But don't worry, anyone would still like to get involved. Do come back and watch this video afterwards, because as it turns out, there's something new to complain about. How fun. So, then, Deb has been sending out responses to various complaints that were escalated, and I say thank you again to everyone who shared those responses with me. Now, we got a few news items to discuss today, but before we get to those, we should cover that response and the next step in their complaints process. And allow me to share with you the response that they sent to me, which amazingly enough is even lazier than the last one they sent. And let me first quote from the escalated complaint, just to refresh our memories here. So, I said, and claims in the article that no high-profile trans women who have spoken about sex and relationships wanted to speak to her. This is not true because she spoke to Chelsea Poe. I understand fully that the author can include or not include whoever she likes in her article and do not need this explained to me. I was getting a little snippy there. What she cannot do is make false claims about who was interviewed. The articles claim that no high-profile trans women who have spoken about sex and relationships wanted to speak to the author is provably false, and that is what I require a response from them about. And, in response to this, Bebgik replied, "Thank you for getting in touch again to restate your complaint that an interview with Chelsea Poe did not feature in the article we being pressured into sex by some trans women. They just taking the piss at this point, aren't they? We can only reiterate that the choice of interviews which feature in the final version of an article is the legitimate expression of the editorial judgments at." So, they have again deliberately misunderstood what my complaint was. Because they have no way to respond legitimately without admitting fault, they simply pretended I said something else and are responding to that instead. Now, the next step involves escalating complaints to the case, Executive Complaints Unit, or EQ. The email response you get from them at this stage should include a link to contact the EQ, which will take you to a page where you can escalate your complaint again. Now, there isn't too much for me to add here in terms of arguments that could be made, as the overall tactic at this last stage has been to dig in their heels and repeat what they said in the first stage, even when it doesn't make any sense to do so, like with the response they sent to me. So, my acute complaint is going to largely be me just restating what I said the last time and explaining why the response is, again, completely inadequate. And I'm sure your response will be generally similar to this, just tailored to statements made in your own individual complaint. Now, I'd advise that you draft these EQ complaints offline, because the webpage you reach with the link in the email will not let you edit your complaint once it's been submitted. Also, the first time I tried to submit me EQ complaint, I got an error message saying that something went wrong, so I had to start the process over by clicking the link in the email again, and it worked the second time, so watch out for that, IGUS. So then, on to article news. IGUS. Firstly, Chelsea Poe submitted a formal request to them asking for the footage of her interview with the author of the article, Caroline Lowbridge, but they're accusing to withhold that footage, and it's not hard to imagine why they would, but they want that interview out there. Right now, Becane just barely plausibly deny that they knew about the allegations against Lily Cade, assuming that we believe that Caroline Lowbridge never did a basic internet search for Lily Cade's name, and that the very rigorous editorial process just so happened to miss her inclusion. The much worse story for Debic would be that Lowbridge definitely knew about the allegations before publishing the article and chose to ignore them, which I believe is almost certainly true, but it is hard to prove definitively without footage of her being told. Anyway, in other news, there was recently a protest held in front of this London headquarters in opposition to this recent transphobic news coverage, and it had a pretty amazing turnout considering that it's winter, it was raining, and there's an ongoing pandemic. Various folks gave speeches criticizing Thebki's conduct, including, of course, the article that we've been concerned with. This protest was covered by several news websites, but it was not covered by Thebk. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, you might find that rather odd, right? A big part of Thebk defense of the article and its wider coverage of trans issues is their claim of impartiality. Our commitment to impartiality means we have to cover every angle of a debate, even if it's unpopular, and even if people don't want to hear it. And this extends even to the point of platforming absurd conspiracy theorists like people who believe the earth is flat. And this isn't me exaggerating here. Thebke's director of editorial policy recently stated that platforming flat earth as is occasionally appropriate, and that, quote, if a lot of people believed in flat earth, we'd need to address it more. Now, this is an outright abdication of what should be the most basic of journalistic principles, to report the truth. Thebke cannot be an impartial observer of public opinion here, because they also affect public opinion. If just because some people believe the earth is flat, Thebke running flat earth coverage, whatever that would look like, then they would cause more people to believe it. They would be well more well we to be well while the Because by being platformed on the flat earth arguments would be given a weight that they otherwise are not. You can't be impartial when it comes to what is true. The earth is not flat, regardless of how many people believe it to be. That's my hot take for the day there. And how far does this principle go? Exactly. Some people think the Holocaust was a hoax. Some people think COVID vaccines contain microchips that control your brain. Content, I'm all there. Your bike, you know, is that going to write articles of critically sharing those views just because some people believe them. This is a I I can't do the Anyway, all that aside, we're left with their claim of impartiality. They cover every angle of our debate, so they say. So where, we can ask, is the coverage of the protest that took place right on their doorstep? After all, an anonymous self-selecting social media poll of less than 100 people was considered important enough to get a several thousand-word article on the website. But a protest right outside their headquarters doesn't get mentioned at all. So what happened to showing every side of our debate? Because right now it looks like that excuse only runs in one direction. It looks like the big want to use impartiality as a smokescreen to platform bigotry, whereas protests against that bigotry get ignored. Now, I don't like this very much, and I want to do something about it. And what I'm going to do is, and we all know where this is going to be now, Don told. I'm going to submit a complaint. Now, the deadline to complain about the article has passed, but the deadline to complain about the lack of the coverage of the protest has not passed. So here's what we, if you feel so inclined, are going to do. I'm going to go to the complaints page, linked below, click on Make a Complaint, where it says what is your complaint about. I'm going to select General. Are you contacting us about a previous complaint? No. On the next page, where it says select the best category to describe your complaint, I'm going to select not enough coverage. And then I'm going to paste the text of me complaint about the lack of coverage of the protest, which I'll also share below. Now, I can tell you what to do with your own time, of course, but here's a fun fact for you. Vcodec's current complaint record is 110,000 complaints, which they received in response to their coverage of Prince Philip's death. Now, this video will probably get over that number of views, which means if everyone who's hearing this right now goes to the link below and submits a complaint, we do break the Vcodec's all-time complaint record. Again, I'm not telling you what to do at all. It's up to you. I just thought that was kind of interesting. Anyway, that's all from me today, folks. I'll see you next time.